Welcome everybody to Wire to Wire Sports Podcast, episode 137. I am your pissed off host, the NFL genius. In the upper left corner, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell.
What's happening?
And they are who we thought they are, and we let them off the hook. Sally knows what the hell I'm talking about.
Yeah, we shouldn't talk about it on the show.
No, dude, look, they won. Good game, good group. They're a great team, but we had them on the ropes. But I'm not going to get into it. All right, in the upper right corner, you got Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally,
Equally as pissed
Cross.
Equally as pissed off as Gene, Uncle Shally.
Oh, dude, when the uncle's pissed off, you ever had that uncle that's really mad and everything? Food's cooked too much. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so we got a lot to get into this week. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs or what they are. We're not going to do our finals preview. We'll do that next week. We're just going to talk about the series that started already. But we got a lot to get into this week. So we got our top 10 best rivalries. We have our top 5 most underrated players in the NBA. We're going to talk a little MLB, and then you got to be kidding me. So to start off talking about the show, to start talking about the NBA playoffs. So let's start there. My mic sounds different. Is this still issue?
It's just you're just a little low, a little bit lower than where you normally are.
I'm lower. All right, hold on. Let me move it a little closer. That might be the problem. I might not be close enough. Volume up a little bit. Gain tax on there.
There you go. See,
there you go. Now. There you go.
I'm ready. I'm EA Sports.
Oh, now you're not. Now you're back. You're back away.
This way.
Yeah. Once you're there.
Yeah, I got to move it here. It's all right. I switched my settings accidentally, so now it's going to be right in front of me. But let's get rolling. We got the NBA playoffs. LeBron, a.k.a. LeSwept, in the conference finals. The Los Angeles Lakers go out in embarrassing fashion versus the Denver Nuggets. We got to talk about the series. We got to talk about what that sweep means to LeBron's legacy. And, and we'll obviously get into the coaching matchup. I think Darvin Ham coached over his head the entire playoffs. And then Michael Malone said, Junior, I'm going to show you what coaching in the NBA playoffs looks like. Nothing that Denver did, LA could stop. So we'll start there. Cottrell, your thoughts on the Nuggets versus Lakers series, the matchup between Malone and Darvin Ham, and what it means to LeSwep's legacy.
So I'll start off with the coaching matchup. We had said Darvin Ham did a great job throughout the postseason with his coaching adjustments and the things that he had done in the previous 2 series. And I actually think that he made good adjustments in this series against the Nuggets. It was just that Mike Malone made better adjustments. You saw after game 1, the Lakers had a lot of success late in the fourth quarter, switching Rui Hachimura on Joker and having AD kind of just man the middle. Similar strategy to what they did against the Warriors when they had Kevon Looney and Draymond Green on the court. But Mike Malone made the adjustment, and he made it pretty quick. Instead of just letting AD roam the middle there, they would do multiple different things, whether it be a Joker Murray pick and roll and get Schroeder or whoever was guarding Murray at the time into the action, or sometimes they would just run a big man pick and roll with Gordon and Joker. So just doing things like that, really disrupting that rhythm that the Lakers thought that they found defensively. That was a big part to Malone and Darvin Ham. He tried to make his counter adjustments as well. You saw game 2 that some things, some adjustments that he tried to make, whether it be sitting D'Lo on the bench a little bit longer, or just Tristan Thompson getting minutes in game 4. There was just adjustments that were made, but Mike Malone made better adjustments and the Nuggets played better. You got to give credit to where credit is due. Jamal Murray showed up every single game. even the one game where he wasn't shooting the best in the first 3 quarters. He went out in fourth quarter and dominated the game and ultimately sealed it for the Nuggets to take care of home court. So you give credit to where credit is due. On the flip side, for the Lakers, I mean, this is the team that was the 7th seed going into the playoffs, and expectations for them going in weren't high. They started playing great basketball, and then you started seeing, hey, the Lakers can make it to the championship. The Lakers can win a championship. The Lakers can compete for a championship. So you give credit to what they did, but it was a great series for it to be a 4-game series. Every game was entertaining. I know Denver pulled away late in that second game, but every game was competitive, and so I gotta give credit to where credit is due. But as a whole, I enjoyed the series.
It was a fun series. We'll go right to Shally in a minute. The one thing I didn't hear you mention, and I don't think you will mention it because you are a Listan, is with 1 minute left in Game 4, LeBron James was absolutely dreadful. With 1 minute left in Game 1, LeBron James was absolutely dreadful. With 1 minute left in Game 3, LeBron James was absolutely dreadful. I have said this his whole career. He is one of the greatest players of all time. He's actually the GOAT if you delete the final minute of the game.
Most game winners all time.
You take the most, you're going to hit the most.
Better percentage than your favorite player.
I will tell you this. You look at that last minute of the game. Last minute of Game 4. Takes a bad shot, turns the ball over, and then you knew he's getting the ball. 113, 111. He's scared. You knew he's getting the ball.
He took a bad shot in Game 4, the one with 2 seconds left on the shot clock.
I'll talk about that one. Oh, 2 seconds left. I'm talking about, yes, I am talking about that one. That's correct.
That's not a bad shot. That's just what
You're
get off.
LeBron James, and you don't touch the ball until 4 seconds are left in the shot clock. And you're not demanding the ball, and you're passing it around to Rui Hachimura and expecting him to bail you out. That is the issue I have. It's not about the fact that it landed back in his hand with 2 seconds left. It's about the fact that they were playing pity-pat with the basketball, and he kept passing the ball.
But that's not what happened.
Yes, it was what happened.
It was an inbound play, so I don't know what you're talking about. He got the ball with 2 seconds left. They ran an inbound play. It was like 3.6 on the shot clock. They ran an inbound play. It was a pin down. He got the ball in the corner, and he missed it.
How did they get to 3 seconds left in the shot clock? Control.
I get there was different things that happened during that aspect.
The ball to Rui Hachimura twice in the same possession.
Continue your point.
That's my point. Drive the lane. Drive the lane. They call foul every single time. I'll tell you what, there's not a team I've ever seen in basketball playoffs that had more calls go their way and still get swept. It's embarrassing. Nikola Jokic is a 2-time MVP. He had 5 fouls, and 3 of them probably weren't fouls. 3 of them. Am I lying? Please tell me I'm lying. Please give me the chicken wing on the AD blown layup again. He gave him the chicken wing. Get the hell out of here. Barely. They showed the replay. Like, I didn't see anything here. That's wild to me. How is a 2-time MVP getting that called against him? Shally, did you see something different than I seen? Or are you in agreement that LeBron was fine?
I don't think. Listen, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm as critical as LeBron as anybody a lot of the times. I think at some point, kind of to your point, beginning, with Malone and just out-coaching Ham, I also think at some point you should have to tip your cap to Ham and AD and LeBron for getting them there and overachieving and making the run that they did. I don't think he was great in crunch time by any means. I mean, there was definitely, I think it was Game 2 maybe, that the last 2.5 minutes were an absolute disaster for LeBron. But again, I mean, to his credit as well, I mean, he did what he kind of normally does as well. I mean, he turned it on when he had to, and he got him to the Western Conference Finals. We were a month left in the season. We were all on here arguing, me and you against Cottrell, that they weren't going to make the playoffs.
I'll admit I was wrong there.
As was I.
I'm a hater. I'm a LeBron hater. I'm fully admitting I'm a LeBron hater. And Karam, can you like expand on that comment? The LeBron the GOAT conversation is so weird. I don't know what you mean by that. What side are you on?
I think at some point you also just have to acknowledge, you have to have the horses to win sometimes, and that's what it comes down to. And again, we talked about it, and that was my big thing with Denver. I just think Denver had too many good players and too much depth for LA, and I think it just showed. I mean, they couldn't slow down Joker. Jamal Murray looks like, the superstar Jamal Murray before tore his ACL.
Bubble Jamal Murray, baby.
Bubble Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon's playing well. They're getting good, getting production out of Michael Porter Jr. They just had too many bullets in the gun, man. I mean, and sometimes that's what it comes down to. LeBron and AD can't do every. It was a 2-man show, and then hoping some role player had like the game of his life. And it
was a 2-man show for 2 games. AD is every other game. If it's an even game, he doesn't show up. If it's an odd game, he does show up. It's weird.
You did call that game 2. He went from game 1, game 2. I think he had like 14 points. But I mean, listen,
huge bet because of that. I had the under on AD in like everything.
But he got a shit ton of rebounds that game.
He did. He did have a shit ton of rebounds that game. But again, I mean, I think sometimes that's just what it boils down to, and that's why teams are better than other teams. I think Malone definitely outcoached Ham, but like I said, I think Ham did a great job for being a first-year coach, and I mean, I don't think you can argue that he got the most out of that team with
Darvin Ham did a great job
with the way it's currently constructed.
Darvin Ham did a great job. I'll tell you what, Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura earned themselves a lot of money in this postseason.
I wish you could go back. I mean, I'm sure you can, but I remember when we did the trade deadline thing, and I can't remember who it was, but someone brought up that trade and said that could be a sneaky one that makes an impact. And I mean, it definitely did. He got out of Washington, and he went to LA, and he played really well. So,
look, listen. We're doing exactly what ESPN wants us to do, and that's my fault. I want to pour salt on the wound. But in reality, the Denver Nuggets played great basketball. Michael Porter Jr. had 6 assists in Game 3. I didn't even think there ever would be a game he had 6 assists. You mean fire it up, Michael Porter Jr.? Never seen a shot he didn't like?
I will say, too, Michael Porter Jr. did not play that way at all in this series. Like, there was – I mean, maybe on a handful of occasions you saw MPJ throw up something that you're like, you probably could have got a better look this possession, but he was not the player that he's been basically his whole career. So, and I give credit to Mike Malone for that as well, because I feel like there was probably a chance that he told him, like, hey, you do that kind of stuff in this series, you will have a shorter leash. So. And I also want to give credit to Mike Malone for, I think it was Game 3. He ended up pulling Aaron Gordon and didn't play him because it just was a bad matchup for the way the flow of that game. He was doing nothing offensively, and the Lakers were targeting him defensively. And Mike Malone said, "Hey, you're one of our 4 best players on the team, but you're sitting down these last 8-10 minutes of the game." So Darvin Ham didn't have in him to do that with D'Lo until Game 4, and it kind of
worked better for them. Game 4 was the most competitive game.
It did
for the Lakers to win.
No, they were up 15.5. They should have won the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly,
I want to go to the coach's comments. Coach Dante, he said there were times that the Lakers played great defense. Denver Nuggets made shots as well. They made some tough shots in the series. I agree 100% with that. He also said the Lakers were 13th in the West when they made those trades. They were one of the best defensive teams in the league after the trade deadline. I'm giving Darvin Ham credit. 100%. Darvin Ham deserves the credit. Brandon said Reeves was so much better than I thought. Fun to watch. I agree 100%.
I mean, he played better in the playoffs than he had in the regular. He wasn't bad in the regular season by any means, but he definitely was a lot better in the playoffs.
I will say this. The 2 players that stepped up to me for the Nuggets that you wouldn't expect were Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. My guy. And I love any team I'm on, I'll take Bruce Bowen. You want to talk about underrated? We're going to talk about underrated.
Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown, sorry. Not Bruce Brown. You want to talk about underrated players in the league? That guy's got to be one of the most underrated basketball players in all basketball. He's like a baby Draymond Green in a sense that what he brings to a team, like anything, just tip-ins and dive to the lane, offensive rebounds, like just all-out effort, screen and rolls. Like, I love him. Love the guy.
He's definitely a whatever-it-takes guy. And you know, I mean, we talked about it last week with PJ Tucker on the Sixers. You know, we always talk about Draymond Green. You know, if you have enough skill on the team, those are the type of guys you need on the team. They're the guys that will make or break, especially come playoff time, to steal your game here and there, and that can be the difference in a series.
If Brandon said Joker should have been ejected after he salted Braun into the front row, definitely not a flop. That's a troll comment. I think he's talking about the big LeBron flop where he got the water on his head and he fell on the sideline. Or is he talking about the drive where Nikola Jokic absolutely bullies LeBron? Because that wasn't a flop. He did. Either one, I don't know. I think he's talking about the flop that LeBron
probably the water on. I'm not gonna lie, that was actually hilarious because ESPN caught it afterwards, and he looked back at the fan that was like handing him a napkin, and he's just like, "Thanks." He looked.
I think the funniest part of it was Joker, like, turnabout's fair play, flopping ridiculous on LeBron and getting the foul back.
Oh, yeah. LeBron. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Every moment of it.
Joker is like,
he's so much fun to watch, bro. I'm now that MB got his MVP, I can stop hating on Joker.
Of course, game-wise, he's great to watch. But I will say too, Joker is like super. He's like a crafty vet. Like, yeah. he knows how to draw fouls. He also knows how to get away with like certain stuff. Like, I know you didn't see it as much in this series, but like he can throw his hand in, like swipe down, swipe an arm, but like make it look like it was a good attempt on the ball. So like he's just
one of the worst
crafty and everything.
One of the worst no calls of the whole game was where AD definitely got fouled by Joker. Joker swiped down the ball,
but it looked so clean though.
I know.
It looked so clean. Like
in the replay, he got smoked. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah,
that was a bad no call.
Joker is very crafty.
All right, well,
very polished.
I guess that's one of the three fouls that maybe it was like turnabout's fair play, like the three fouls that weren't fouls, like it's like turnabout for that because that was a foul. But let's talk about the Eastern Conference. The Boston Celtics are already up to their antics, talking in the media. Don't let us get one, and they get one, and they're playing. You know, if you turn on any media or any TikTok, you'll see the Kevin Millar comments with the Boston Red Sox and
ESPN all day today.
A-Rod and Jeter were at the game for Game 4, and
the Boston Kool-Aid is being passed around ESPN heavily today.
I mean, they need something. They're hoping for a Boston-Denver finals right now because Denver-Miami is going to be the least drawn finals in a while. But I promise you this, I will watch it.
I'll watch it.
Wait to watch it.
Miami is going to, once that ultimately comes to fruition, and this isn't even getting too far into like a preview of the series, but like Miami is going to make Denver fight for everything that they have. Like, and you just keep seeing that because Boston is clearly the more talented team. All three of us picked Boston in this series. Gene, I think you said 5. I think I ultimately said 6. I think Shally was with you with 5. So Boston's clearly super talented, but this Miami team just doesn't quit.
Can I say another comment that's going to be really ridiculous? It's going to be a ridiculous comment. I think if the Heat play the Nuggets might sweep them.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from.
Let me elaborate on that. The one thing I didn't take into account, and I should have, I said it game 1. Like I picked the Celtics in 5 and I watched game 1. I'm like, the one thing I really didn't take into account was how much of a difference Eric Spoelstra over Joe Mazzulla was.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be that versus Michael Malone. It just won't. Like, I'm not saying Spo or Mike Malone's a better coach, one or the other, but the difference between Joe Mazzulla and Mike Malone it's
huge.
Yeah, it's just different, another level. And I also don't understand the way Miami will defend them. I understand Aaron Gordon will be on Jimmy Butler the whole series and bother him with that length and strength and make Jimmy hit shots. But I don't know how Miami contains. I don't know how Miami contains Denver. I don't know how they slow them down at all.
I think it's very similar to the LA series. If I'm being honest, a lot of the points I just made. I think they have too many weapons. They have too many ways they can score, and I just think Miami's outgunned in that series. Like you said, Aaron Gordon. I don't think he's going to stop Jimmy by any means, but he's going to bother Jimmy. If you frustrate Jimmy enough, keep him in the mid-20s. I think that's not ideal for Miami. And I think Denver's going to be able to score, and that's a huge issue.
All right, but I've already broken the golden rule. I started talking about the finals. We'll be doing that next week. Let's talk about Miami versus Boston. Game 5's in Boston. Boston is an 8.5-point favorite in Game 5. Who wins Game 5?
So I feel like normally watching the series, there's no way that I wouldn't have picked Miami to go into Boston and win that game. But I mean, just the numbers to me say I can't see Boston losing 3 games at home. So I would go with Boston, and then ultimately I'll say Miami closes it out in 6. But Boston has given me no reason to trust them. I get it. They put out a gutsy performance in Miami for Game 4 to avoid being swept. But I mean, who's to say Jason Tatum's going to have a superstar caliber game? Who's to say Jaylen Brown's going to step up? And that's what you're going to need against a Miami team now that's desperate to close this thing out. Like, they don't care about winning on their home court to close out the series. Like, they'll go to Boston and give them everything that they have to try and close it out there. So I ultimately think that the Celtics will win. I think they're just going to have a little too much. I think they get a lot of out of their role players at home. Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon hitting lots of threes for them. But like I said, I got Miami closing it out in 6.
Charlie, Game 5. What do you think?
I'll go 6 as well. I'm going with 6 just because I think Boston's going to go home confident enough that they found something last night that they can build on. And I don't think they cover. I think it's a very close game. And then eventually I think Miami, goes home and closes it out. I'm not intimidated by any kind of crazy home court advantage like, ESPN or certain other people like you to believe. They're 10-11 at home the last 2 postseasons. They don't defend home court worth a crap, to be honest. So I won't be shocked if Miami goes in there and wins whatsoever. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for one more game and say they make it 3-2, and they go to Miami, and then I think Miami puts it to them, and that's it.
I guess all 3 of us see it the same way, and that means Miami will probably close it out in Game 5.
Either that or hammer Boston in 7, one or the other.
I'll put it to you this way. I love Jimmy Butler's comments after the game. They're asking about series swings, and he's like, do you think that, do you believe in momentum? He's like, yeah, the momentum shifted back to us because we're that much hungrier now to close it out. And we can't, I love the way he talks, man. I wish the guy never left Philadelphia. Every time I hear him talk, I'm like, man, I wish he was in Philly.
It's funny you said that because there was an article up yesterday about how he's like the DJ in the locker room and all this other stuff. And I started reading it, dude, and I got halfway through it and I just stopped because I just got pissed off. And I just can't. I think for as much grief and criticism as he got for the beginning of his career, and don't get me wrong, a lot of it was very much deserved and he brought on himself with the way he handled things, the way he acted. You just can't say that him going to Miami and finally having a team just looking at him and be like, all right, you're our guy, you are the guy. He's turned out to be a great leader, dude. And I just don't know how anybody else just couldn't see that at some point,
Bro,
and
I don't think all you need to hear.
I don't think people ever question his leadership. I think it was the way that he was leading. I think it was the way that he was leading people. He can coach those guys in Miami the way that I'm sure he is, and he could talk to those guys that way because that's really already a part of their culture. They understand that. They don't have any soft guys in the locker room. When he was in Minnesota, he couldn't get away with that because Cat didn't like that. Andrew Wiggins didn't like that. When he was in Philadelphia, he couldn't get away with that because Ben Simmons didn't like that, and he He didn't take it how he should have taken it. So I think him going to Miami is, I don't think he's ever been considered, in my opinion, I don't think he's ever been considered a bad leader. I just think that he's had soft teammates that have been too sensitive about the way that he was trying to lead them.
Can I agree with both of you guys? I think both of you guys are right. I think Shalley's right with he didn't talk to like he definitely brought a lot of it on himself. He was very extreme. But I also think Charles right, because if you want to win, like, guys, the comparison's really funny, but it's very accurate, right? He's baby Jordan in a sense. Like, his attitude is very Jordan-esque. Like, you're gonna play hard, you're gonna work hard, and this is how we're gonna win games. And I'll do whatever it takes. I'm not saying he's Michael Jordan, obviously, but they call him Jordan's kid. Like, he's Michael Jordan's kid, and he started his career in Chicago. And like, a lot of that makes sense, right? A lot of it makes sense in his mentality and the way he addresses the game. If you wanted to see the way Michael Jordan's mentality was, and you didn't have the privilege of watching 90s basketball, just watch Jimmy, because that's what his mentality was. Same mentality. The same mentality. Shalley, would you not agree with that?
No, I would. I mean, I think it was a little tougher for Jimmy in some sense that he didn't have necessarily the pedigree and maybe, the championships and stuff like that to back it up. Obviously, Michael didn't have that at the beginning, but by his mid to late 20s, he started winning them. Jimmy's still not there yet. And I think sometimes, listen, we've all been around sports our whole life. Like, I mean, egos play a factor in all this as well. You can be the best leader in the world, and if you got a guy, in the locker room that has a bad egg, so forth and so on, it can ruin everything. I also think it's a different NBA today than it was when Jordan was playing. I think it was a lot easier back then to get guys on board like that and just be like, yeah, this guy's like a psychopath, but we're winning and he's not wrong, so we already jump on board. Now you have guys these days that would look at that and be like, all right, well, that's cool, but you know what? Like, I want my piece of that. Or like, I want my money. I want this. I want that. That all makes it harder as well. But it's, again, I think Jimmy matured a little bit too. I think you have to, at some point we have to acknowledge that fact. I think he learned from his lessons in Minnesota. I think you saw it a little bit when you were here. I think he almost became coming in here late. I don't know what Gene's opinion of it is, but it was kind of weird that he came in and it's always been JoJo's team or it was Ben's team. When he was on a team, like I felt like it was Jimmy's team. Like Jimmy was the guy. Like they followed Jimmy on the court. We made it terrible.
Brett Brown said he was the adult in the room.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he meant by that. Those comments, everybody overlooks those comments.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler was the guy that made the engine move.
Yep.
I felt like Philadelphia completely, severely screwed that up. In that offseason, I would have went to Jimmy Butler and been like, Jimmy, I need you and Joel playing for the next 10 years. What do we need to do? Fire Brett Brown, get rid of Ben Simmons, and it would have been done. That Sixers team would have won a championship 100%.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, that's
still hire Doc.
I don't care if we hire Doc. I don't care if we hire Doc if Jimmy Butler's on the team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you saw with the little bit, you get a full off season and another full season on their belts and playing together. There is no hiding the love affair between JoJo and Jimmy. And again, I think kind of like
Jimmy talks to JoJo the way JoJo wants to be talked to. JoJo wants to have his cage rattled. Yes. He responded well to that when Charles Barkley and Shaq did it. He responded well to that when Jimmy Butler did it, and he responded well when PJ Tucker did it. He likes that. That's why the next coach that comes in here needs to be a cage rattler.
I agree with you on that as well. We'll get into that in a second, I'm sure. But listen, I mean, like I said, I think he's grown up, and I think he's learned from his mistakes, and you have to give him credit because not all players do. And like I said, he went into a situation, like Gene just said, Pat Riley sat him down and said, you're our guy. This is what we want to do. We want to build around you. We want you here until the end of your career. Like, what do we got to do to make that happen? And they got him. And, he's, that's what you're seeing now. I mean, it's a shame for us. We royally screwed it up. Cause like I said, I mean, it's you look at like what you would have right now, assuming we still take Maxey and with other stuff, the team would be so good. They'd be the best team in the East.
Kevin from the Philippines. or from Thailand checking in.
The Flash.
Is it crazy? Does anyone think the Celtics have a chance? They're a far more talented team, and they just haven't been playing well. I still think they have a chance. You win Game 5. Game 6 is an absolute must-win for Miami.
6 becomes a pressure cooker for Miami.
100%. I'm not saying the series is over. I would give a 25% chance.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but I think it's more than just the Celtics haven't been playing well. Like to me, it almost seems more like mental lapses. I think it was Jalen Rose that said it, and I couldn't agree more. He said Game 3 felt like a situation where the Celtics came in with a game plan, and there wasn't one Celtic player that believed in it. Like that's how the flow of the game felt. The way that they were guarding Miami defensively, and just the way that they came out with no sense of urgency. Like to Kenny the Jet Smith, to his point, he said Game 3 looked like it was the end. It was a 3-0 series, and that was Game 4. And human nature takes over, and typically you'll have teams that sometimes they're like, hey, we're outmatched here, the series is over, 140 teams before us couldn't get it done, and they just lay that egg in Game 4. He said that's how it looked in Game 3, when in reality you can go win Game 3 and say, hey, we win Game 4 right back in this thing. So Boston's just not getting anything out of Joe Mazzulla. I don't think.
Joe Mazzulla sucks.
He's a deer in headlights right now.
I knew he was terrible the Game 2 in the Philadelphia 76ers series when he went to the press conference and gave himself credit.
You see those adjustments I made?
Yeah, when I heard that, I'm like, oh, this guy's way fish out of water.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing I'll say
was a problem when we were looking at Doc Rivers, like Doc Rivers was out coaching somebody in the playoffs.
Not wrong on that, but I mean, to some degree too. I mean, he was thrown into a crazy situation too, and they are still playing. I mean, he deserves a little bit of the credit. I mean, he has got them there. No, listen, man. I mean, you can't. There's been games this year where he's called the right.
You could coach the Celtics here.
I was gonna say Jason Tatum's been to the conference finals at this point now 4 times in his career. Like I don't think.
My point is though, but at the same time, Brad Stevens had got him there. Other people have got him there, and they haven't gotten any further than this guy, and it's the same damn roster. Like I'm just saying, like that's he built finals in the first year. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not saying they're hard to coach, but I'm not saying the guy's a moron. He's definitely over his head right now. Like
I'd say he's a moron.
No, man, you hate him.
Let's go into the coaching carousel and assuming that Joe Mazzulla loses his job.
I honestly think that's a safe assumption. I don't think they're going into a summer where Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are approaching free agency. Jaylen Brown this year, Jason Tatum next year, but if those are going to be your guys,
Game 5 at home, you might as well write that he's being fired the next day.
Yeah, because there's no way if I'm Jaylen Brown and I don't believe in this coach, why would I sign a 5-year supermax to stay in Boston? Like I get it, the money will be great, but
Jaylen Brown will not be back on that team.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so either. But I think if you bring Joe Mazzulla back and he's considering it, there's no way.
100%. I just don't make the same mistake the 76ers made.
Do you go after him, Gene?
Who? Jaylen Brown?
Yeah.
I would give up everything for Jaylen Brown. Everything. Yeah. I'd give up Toby. I'd give up Harden.
You guys have a max slot available though, because Harden's off the books, right?
Maxey, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid, and then PJ Tucker. Like, I don't care. Give me that. Yep. I'll take that. It's better than Toby.
Well, Toby's got one more year, so.
Bro, Toby you can get rid of.
Toby, you'll just have to ship him to a team like the Spurs or something like that for the expiring contract.
Yeah,
people
probably throwing it first with it, but if a first means you get $35 million off your books, I mean that's a win every time.
76ers go out there and sign 2 max players to get rid of Toby.
Yep,
I still know who the second one is.
It's okay. Give me Jaylen Brown. I'll take him.
I'm gonna say you don't have to force a supermax. You
don't. You could sign good rotational players and have Jaylen Brown, Maxey, and Joel with 5 good role players. And
forcing the max is how we got into this situation.
Or even Fred VanVleet. Like you could sign a guy like that to be your point guard. Give him
not with Maxey. Maxey has to start next year.
Start him at the 2.
No, you can't have Maxey in it. and Van Fleet is your backcourt.
No.
They'll get abused.
I mean, I think because of the front court that you have with Jalen, PJ, and Joel, like you can get away with. Joel's going to defend the paint, and Maxi's a good defender.
I get it, but they'd be too small. Just my opinion. Let's go to coaching carousel. Let's talk about the 4 main teams that have coaching vacancies. We're going to talk about the Phoenix Suns, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Boston Celtics if Joe Mazzulla gets fired. We'll go through those 4, and I want you to tell me, we'll start with a team. We can play roulette. I can even do like a randomizer, and we'll start with a team. And I want you to tell me who is the next coach of that team. You want to do a randomizer?
We're doing who we want or who we think is getting the job?
Who we think? Well,
I think
you would hire.
Who I would hire? Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm going to randomize the list. You ready? All right, here we go. We got Celtics. '76ers. Bucks. Suns. And the randomizer. Ready? All right, we're starting with the Celtics. They stayed in the 1 spot. Who is the Celtics' next head coach if Joe Mazzulla gets fired? Could it be a reunion for Doc? No.
No.
All right, start with you, Control.
I hate saying it because I feel like every time there's a coaching vacancy, his name gets thrown around. But I would send Mark Jackson to Boston. I would want a guy.
Mark Jackson on my list, but I don't have him in Boston.
I would want a guy who knows what it's like
to the same place I do then.
Probably.
I would want a guy who knows how to coach superstars. Obviously, he's coached Stephen Clay before. But I also would want him to bring an identity to my team. Right now, the Boston Celtics look like they don't have an identity. Agreed. I get it. During the regular season, they had this strong presence offensively, and then they also had the guys to get it done defensively. But right now, they don't have that identity. But if you bring in a guy like Mark Jackson, the team's going to play hard, and they're going to play really good defense. So that's who I would consider bringing in if I was the Boston Celtics.
I love this comment because it's accurate. Is it sad to say if Mazzulla wins the chip by some miracle, I think he still deserves to be fired? That is a great comment.
Winning in spite of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you too. Jinx, somebody owes me a Coke. Shally, who's the next coach of the Boston Celtics if Mazzulla?
I'm a little upset because I thought I was the only one who's going to talk about Mark Jackson, and I found out you guys both have him. So
I have him, but a different team.
I think me and you might have him on the same team, but I thought I was gonna give myself flowers on that one, but apparently I'm sharing. I think it's, I don't want to say it's a weird fit, but I thought about this one today. I think there's a chance Monty Williams ends up in Boston. I think Jaylen would sign off on it. We just talked about Jaylen Brown. I think you're gonna have to bring in somebody that's more of a like more of a big name that has experience. I don't think Jaylen Brown has any chance of staying if you're going to go through another experiment type deal with somebody with, no coaching experience and it's going to be brand new and stuff like that. I think Monty would, would succeed in Boston with that roster. And I think offensively they would play a little bit different. And to Cottrell's point, I think we give them an identity, which is something they're lacking right now. So I'll go outside chance to go with Monty.
I have the answers, and we're talking about what we think should happen. And I kind of wish the Sixers were on this boat, but I think Nick Nurse would be the head coach of the Boston Celtics. He brings a system. He brings a championship ring to that organization, something Boston desperately is craving. I think Nick Nurse goes in there and creates a good defensive system, the same system they had in Toronto that was successful, and Nick Nurse gets the job in Boston. Next on the agenda, on the randomizer, we had the Suns. You want to go backwards? How do you want to do this one? You want to keep the same order?
Go backwards.
Okay. So for the Suns, I think this one's actually really weird. But this is not what I would do. So let me give you both. Let me give you what I would do, and let me give you what I think is going to happen just for the heck of it. I think the Suns actually bring in Doc Rivers. I really believe that. I think Doc Rivers goes there. He already has the relationship with Chris Paul. They try to get Chris Paul to re-sign there. I could see that happening. I think Doc Rivers goes there. That's what I think is going to happen. Do I think it happens? No. What I think will happen is I think that Frank Vogel gets the job. What I think should happen is I think Frank Vogel gets the job over there in Phoenix. So I think that it's a perfect mix for them, essentially, because Vogel does a ton with building a defensive core. I think Vogel is the right answer. I think Doc Rivers is the wrong answer. But I think ultimately they end up going with Doc Rivers.
All right, so I'm kind of happy we didn't match because this is where I thought you were going to say it. I think Mark Jackson goes to Phoenix. I think he'd be a perfect fit, like you mentioned earlier. He coached Stephen Clay. He's not going to have any kind of issue with KD and Booker. And, I don't know what happens with the Ayton situation. I think we all agree he's not there next year. But he's a little bit more of a hard-nosed coach, which I think would be beneficial for those guys. I think Monty at times was a little bit too much of a player's coach. And I think Mark Jackson, and obviously if CP3 is there and however they're going to handle him next year, I think that's a great match between those two guys. So I think if Mark Jackson steps in there, I think that's a great fit for him to get back into coaching. He's a ready-to-win team now, different attitude, a little bit harder on the guys. I think the little inmate running the asylum thing there needs to stop a little bit. It needs to be a little bit more structured and I think he could be very successful in Phoenix.
Control.
So the person who I would say I think gets the Phoenix job, I think they're gonna interview Kenny Atkinson, and I think he's ultimately going to be the guy that gets the job. I think the connections between him, obviously, former coach of Brooklyn, and then he's been the head Warriors assistant for the last couple of years. So I think they're looking for a guy that has some coaching experience already, and that's been around the game a long time and knows how to deal with superstar players. And I think a guy like Kenny Atkinson, who's coached top end talent already, I think is a good fit for them over there in Phoenix.
I just looked at the odds just for the heck of it. I didn't want to look at these before I gave you my opinions. Nick Nurse is favored. Doc is second, and third, which I think is really interesting, is Tyronn Lue.
That is the name that I was thinking about as well, because I really think that you're going to end up with a situation very similar to how you saw with Quinn Snyder in Utah, because it already came out that he hates the fact that he has to deal with his superstars not playing at the end of the season every single year.
So that's an interesting one, Ty Lue. I think Ty Lue going there would be such a perfect fit. But all right, let's go with the Milwaukee Bucks. They're next on the agenda.
Now, this one I feel good about this one. I think the best fit for them would be Nick Nurse.
Ooh.
I love him going there. I think he's
going with me.
No. Nick Nurse here. I think Nick Nurse is a guy who gets the most out of his players. He's obviously good basketball mind, but I think in Toronto he kind of got the short end of the stick because that roster wasn't built to win now. So it's good that he got to escape. But I think if you give him a talent like Giannis, and obviously assuming that the Bucks re-sign Chris Middleton or improve at that position, I really think he'd be able to get the most out of that Milwaukee team, and that fresh face and fresh culture would put them back in the finals probably next season.
Callie.
So for the Bucks, for me, I'm gonna talk about a guy that Cottrell just talked about. I like Kenny Atkinson in Milwaukee. Again, a guy that is familiar with coaching superstars, has been around Steph for a while now. Going to Milwaukee, I think he can step in day one, demand respect, have the credentials to coach those guys. I think they can get them balled in. And I don't think Milwaukee going to more of a free-flowing type offense would hurt them either. I think they actually play too structured sometimes. I think he would change it up there, like Cottrell's point he just made a second ago. You got to resign Chris Middleton or improve there. But with Drew Holiday and Giannis there and some of the role players they have, I think Kenny Atkinson could easily get that job, and I think Milwaukee would look better next year.
So let me preface this again. For the Bucks, I think it's very easy. I would hire Mark Jackson. I wouldn't think twice about it. They're not going to do that. That's who I would hire. Mark Jackson, I think, is the perfect fit. Who I think they end up hiring is Monty Williams, if Monty Williams doesn't go to the Philadelphia 76ers. So for this exercise that we're doing, I'm going to put who I think they should hire there, and that's Mark Jackson. And then for the Philadelphia 76ers, I'll start. I think the Sixers hire Monty Williams, retain Sam Cassell, and those two run that ball club essentially just like almost like co-head coaches. Like they both run it. They both have a huge hand in it. I think the two heads are better than one, and Monty and Sam have worked on the same staff before. So I think that they'll have great chemistry working together. I think Monty Williams is the Sixers' next head coach, and I would do whatever it takes to retain Sam Cassell as an assistant coach. Pay him the highest assistant coach in the league if you have to.
So mine is similar to yours. I guess mine's just more twofold. I agree with your first assessment. I would love for them to sign Monty and keep Sam Cassell. On the other side of that, though, I'm completely fine if they make Sam Cassell the next head coach of the Sixers. So I've been a fan of that from the get-go. I think you look how closely he worked with Maxey this year and look at his development from the beginning of the year to the second of the year. The guys all respect him in the locker room already. He's familiar. I think he would change things, change the way things are done outside of what Doc did. It'll still be a fresh voice. There's reports coming out that he was pushing for certain things and Doc wouldn't change as some of the players were on board with the stuff he wanted to do. I think it's important too, because depending on what you want to do with JoJo and that whole debacle, it's a very seamless transition from Doc to Sam Cassell. It's easy. So I would be happy if they bring Monty back to town or if they give the job to Sam Cassell.
And I think this is the easiest one here. You notice that the one name that I haven't mentioned yet is Monty Williams as well. And I think this is match made in heaven. Obviously, he's familiar with Philadelphia already. And Gene brought up another great point. Him and Sam Cassell have already worked together. Like, I think that would be the perfect pairing. I think Sam Cassell is probably 1 year away from being that hot name in the next year's coaching cycle if Philadelphia ultimately decides not to hire him this year as a head coach, just because you hear about his player development and not even just the adjustments that he makes, or that he helps Doc make on the sidelines, things like that. But I'm sure you'll see this upcoming summer, over the summer, that players will be going with Sam Cassell. Like, I'm sure you're going to see Tyrese Maxey going to private one-on-one workouts with Sam Cassell, learning more about basketball and getting that kind of work in. So I think, again, you guys know it better than anybody. Sam Cassell already has a firm hold on that locker room. And I don't think Sam Cassell is going to get hired as a head coach this cycle. So you would want to keep him in town. Like you said, Gene, pay him the most amount if that's what you have to do. And you bring in Monty Williams, a guy who is not afraid to call out guys like Joel Embiid to try and get the most out of them. Because if you're not playing well, he has no care in the world how much money you're getting. If you're not playing well, he will tell you about it. And if it comes down to it, he will sit you as well. So I think Monty will be great for the organization.
Kevin the Troll checks in. What about Steve Nash to the Suns? Teach him how to run and gun. He was a defensive stalwart and a stopper. I think he could teach his players how to lock up D and run and gun. Oh, jeez. Kevin the Troll coming through. It'd be interesting coaching carousel. It's funny that you bring up, we just talk about Sam Cassell, and we're getting right into our top 5 most underrated players of all time. Sam Cassell was just so close to being on my list when I was putting together my list. What?
He was on a lot of lists today when I was doing research. So
I think Sam Cassell was super underrated. I make Bucks like Milwaukee because like Sam Cassell, the most underrated rap line of all time. But We have our top 5 most underrated players in the history of the NBA. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. My list is not like any ESPN list. It's not like any. I did my list. I'm not, guys. You don't tune in to Wire to get the same friggin' list. It's on NBA.com, or you can Google, and they're on the list, right? I'm not giving you that same list. I'm giving you who I think is underrated. Just like last week, I gave you what I thought was overrated. You guys want to do this our own list 5 through 1?
Yeah, that's how we did it last week.
All right, let's do the same thing then. Shall I pick the order?
I'll let Cottrell go first. You can go second. I'll go third.
All righty. Cottrell, start us off. Underrated players 5 through 1.
All right, so straight through.
Yes, sir.
Straight
No,
through.
actually, last week we did go. We went snake last week, but that's fine.
I don't think we did.
No, I know for sure we did.
We definitely.
No, we didn't. We didn't. You're right. My number 5 is a guy who I absolutely love watching play. Ultimately didn't win any championships, and I feel like that's where he's rated where he is. That's Carmelo Anthony, guy who just retired. I loved watching Melo play.
Do you think he was underrated? I thought he was overrated.
No, I don't
know if he's overrated. I just don't think he's underrated at all.
I think he's underrated because no matter which way you slice it, Carmelo Anthony is a top 5 scorer of the basketball that this game has ever seen. And I just don't think he gets that kind of respect put on his name. And I get it. He didn't win championships. The way that he played wasn't championship DNA caliber, things like that. But as a individual player, Melo is offensively one of the best the game's ever seen. So I have
Michael Porter Jr.'s role model.
Michael Porter Jr. wishes he could be Melo.
I know, but same mindset though.
Very similar mindset. So your number 5 is Carmelo. Number 4.
My number 4 is the guy who, again, he's in the Hall of Fame, and a lot of it is injury related. But my number 4 is Tracy McGrady.
I thought you were going somewhere else.
Tracy McGrady is a guy who, if you listen to other NBA players talk about, players who are the hardest to guard and things like that, T-Mac's name is a name that consistently comes up. So, and I get it, his injury history and him not being able to get Houston over the hump and things like that. Ultimately, that's why his name isn't brought up in higher regard. But I love T-Mac's game, and I feel like he's not respected enough. One of the things I love
about you is you can always argue and debate with me, and you don't hold back, and you can say things and debate with me, and it doesn't matter. You just don't if I get louder, you're okay with that. I love that about you, right? I'm going to debate with you right here. Okay. I think so far your first 2 names would be on the greatest list for wasted potential list. Ooh. You're calling them overrated. I think they're the most wasted potential players ever to play the game of basketball.
But see, this is what I mean, though. That's why they're on my list, because that's what you think. That's exactly why they're on the list.
I think that those guys are, in my personal opinion, I think those guys are the 2 biggest waste of talent ever to play the game of basketball.
I don't think they're waste of talent. I just don't think in any universe they're underrated. I don't think.
But but Bill, this conversation right here is exactly why I have them on my list.
I get it. I respect it. I respect it, man. I respect your basketball acumen. I just think that those 2 guys you named, if I was making a wasted potential list, they would be 1 and 2.
I hear you. Now my number 3 is
he's gonna have is Grant Hill. Watch.
No. Grant Hill's not on. Grant Hill's not on my list. Not on my list.
On my list.
I got a guy who was 18 years of just not 18 years consistently, but he probably played in the league about 18 years or so. But he was just consistent his whole way through. But he was never looked at as that bona fide guy. But my number 3 is ISO Joe Johnson. That's a guy who I feel like doesn't get the respect that's due. And again, I get it. He wasn't Kobe. He wasn't LeBron. He wasn't in that realm. But you knew game on the line. You give it to ISO Joe. Hey, you had a great chance to win that game. So Joe Johnson.
Just to add to that, because I like that answer. the NBA used to do voting for most underrated player, and Joe Johnson won it 3 years in a row.
Absolutely. Joe Johnson was a bucket, and he was so fun to watch.
Not on my list, but that's interesting.
My number 2 is if we're talking about basketball and I say Robin, you know exactly who I'm talking about. My number 2 is Scottie Pippen.
Oh my God.
Scottie Pippen was a guy who you saw in the 1 year that Jordan was gone for the full season. Scottie Pippen finished like third or fourth in voting. Guy just doesn't get his respect because he was the number 2 on that team, and I get it. Jordan was so much better than Scottie, but if Scottie was on his own team, Scottie's probably still a Hall of Famer, and I feel like a lot of people just don't give him his respect for that. So. That's why
who on planet Earth has never given Scottie Pippen his respect?
A lot of people.
He's on every top 50 all-time list ever. He's in the Hall of Fame. If you want to tell me Scottie was overshadowed, maybe fine. I'll agree with that. I think he maybe didn't get enough of the light that Jordan got. Underrated though? No.
I guarantee if you ask a lot of people, hey, how good could a team have been if Scottie Pippen was their number 1 option? Like, could Scottie have held it down as number 1 guy?
Second round exit.
But you could be a superstar with that kind of and I don't think he gets that respect.
Second round exit.
But I don't think he gets that respect.
The most telling thing that's Scott. By the way, I'm not disagreeing with this one either. And by the way, I hope you remember all this when we're giving our list, that you just picked them apart too. But I'm not disagreeing with you him being underrated, overrated. I'm not on that boat. I'm okay with that. What I will say is the most telling thing that ever happened to Scott in his career was the year that Michael Jordan wasn't on the team, and they had an opportunity to shoot the last shot of the game, and Phil Jackson called the play for Tony Kukoc, and Scottie wouldn't go in the game. It was the biggest quitter move of all time, and it showed how mentally soft Scottie always was.
Can't disagree with you there because I agree wholeheartedly.
I couldn't believe that. Like, I remember that happening like it was yesterday. My dad called a softball pitch. I'm not kidding with you. We used to watch the game softball up at the Bridesburg playground, and a pitcher quit on his team in the middle of a game, and my dad was yelling, "Scottie!" Like, literally. I swear to God, I'm not kidding. I was like 10 years old. But who's your number 1?
But my number 1 is going to be a guy who was left off of the NBA 75 list and has an MVP award. That's Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard in his prime was an absolute force. Defensive player of the year, consistently led the league in blocks, rebounds, things like that. And, he led that Orlando Magic team to the NBA Finals essentially by himself. Like, I know you guys can name other players on that Magic roster, but a lot of people probably don't remember the other guys on that team. If you're like, hey, the Lakers played the Magic in the finals in 2009.
Hedo Turkoglu, Rashard Lewis, Dwight. I'm sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah, like I said, I know you guys.
I love basketball. I'm that guy.
Mikael Petrus was a guy.
Mikael Petrus, defensive stalwart.
Another guy on that team, but Dwight Howard, his big omission of the NBA 75 list obviously was one of the most talked about snubs, but I think it's clear that he's a top 75 guy. So for him not even be on that list, he comes in at number 1 for me.
I get it.
The fun part of your last 3 I liked.
The fun part is I don't have one player to control us.
Me either.
I like it. My number 5, and it's funny. I almost wanted to remove him from the list because of how awful of a general manager he's been. But my number 5 is Elton Brand. Elton Brand does not get talked about for the dominant player he was in Chicago and LA when he played for the Clippers. This guy was a 20-10 guy every single season, and you never hear him mentioned with some of the great power forwards in the game. But statistically, if you pull up Elton Brand's career and match it next to Karl Malone's, I'm serious, take the championship. Elton Brand is right there. Better than C-Webb. Like, everyone, you ask somebody, Elton Brand or Chris Webber, Most people say Chris Webber. Elton Brand was a better player statistically across the board. Elton Brand's my number 5. Any arguments?
Better teammate too.
I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I'd say I'd take him over C-Web, but I get it statistically. I mean, he was on the Clippers team where he was always the number 1 option, and I get it. So was Chris, but I would take Chris over Elton. But outside of that, I agree with you.
I think Chris is more athletic. I think
Elton was a bully, man.
Elton definitely had a better basketball head, though. I'll tell you that much.
He wouldn't have called
my
timeout.
Number 4, I asked this.
Idiot.
I got to give Kyle credit. Kyle Edwards, I got to give him credit. Brett Gardepy, I got to give him credit. My number 4, I asked Sports Empire Network this in the chat earlier, and no one mentioned any players that I had on my list except this guy, the creator of the crossover. Give me Timmy Hardaway. Tim Hardaway, super underrated player. You want to talk about a guy that could break you down? That crossover Allen Iverson gave you, it was created by Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway was drive and dish, drive and go, drive and score. Big Timmy Hardaway fan. Tim Hardaway would be my number 4. My number 3 is the only active player on my list. And I think it's nice way to put it, right? I think this is underrated to me. Most people might not see. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. Who's the second greatest player on the Bulls dynasty?
Scottie Pippen.
Easy ones, right? Who's the second greatest player on the Lakers dynasty?
Which one?
Well, who? Yeah,
Kobe and Shaq.
Well, it's either Kobe or Shaq, depending. Yeah, right? I mean,
or you can go to 80s dynasty, Magic and Kareem, Magic and Worthy. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Who's the second greatest player on the Spurs dynasty? Tony Parker, Tim Duncan. Who's the second greatest player on the current Warriors dynasty? And the name is Draymond Green. Draymond Green, underrated.
That is not the name I was expecting you to pull out of a hat. Draymond was close to making my list, though.
Dynasties, and the second greatest player is looked at as so, but it's what Draymond does for that team is so undervalued in the stat sheet. He constantly triple single, or he does everything for that team. He's on Team USA because of what he does as a teammate. Draymond Green, one of the most underrated players in the history of the NBA.
That's very interesting. I don't dislike that. I don't dislike that one because I was definitely considering Draymond on my list as well. So,
number 2, I have such an acumen for players that just the moment is never too big. I love players that do all the right things on the basketball court, that lead, that do whatever it takes to win. As example, what Draymond Green was. My number 2 is in my opinion, the best player on the dynasty stopper Detroit Pistons. And that's, who do you think you are? Mr. Big Shot, Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups never got the credit he deserved. I loved me some Chauncey Billups. The guy always made that big shot top of the key. Great passer, great dribbler of the ball. Great leader. He went over to Denver. They traded him for Allen Iverson. He made that team instantly better when Allen Iverson was like, I can't not start. Chauncey Billups, super underrated player. And, you know, in a world where I almost put Andre Miller on this list because I've been
that's a good one.
Andre Miller fan, Chauncey Billups to me was the better version of Andre Miller.
Well, Andre Miller couldn't shoot, so.
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chauncey was the better version. I don't know about Chauncey going over to Denver making them better because they made the Western Conference Finals with AI. But I'm hearing you. He didn't get a lot of love.
And my number 1, I already know he's on Shalley's list. He's on mine also. 3-time MVP.
Thief.
Guy came to Philadelphia, and everyone forgets this. They think the 83 championship was Dr. J. No. The guy that got them over the top was Moses Malone. You know, it's funny. He's on every list, but he never gets talked about. He's never the one that you hear. Moses Malone was dominant. You want to talk about a guy that took it to Kareem, that took it to Bird? Moses Malone was the glue that made that 76ers team a championship team. Moses Malone's the most underrated player in the history of basketball to me. I got Moses number 1.
All right, well, this is going to make this a little easier for me. Number 5 for me, I have a guy that Gene just talked about, Chauncey Billups. Again, a team that won a championship. When I think of Chauncey Billups, I think of like unsung hero. I think that's the type of guy that he was. Would do anything. One game he'd score 24 if they needed that. Next game he played defense. Next game he had 14 assists. He could do everything. He was solid everywhere. He probably wasn't great at one thing. But again, you mentioned that Pistons team. You get a lot of like Rip Hamilton and guys like that. I think Chauncey Billups was the proverbial straw that stirred the drink there. And I don't think he gets anywhere near the amount of respect that he deserves. I think he's a little underrated.
I agree with you.
Yeah, being the elder spokesman of this young podcast that we have there, I got to put some history in these lists here. Gene went old school with number 1, so I respect that. And I'm going to get to him in a minute as well. But number 4 for me, I'm going with Mitch Richmond. I know a lot of this is probably hard for a lot.
Mentioned to run TMC teams.
I know.
Cavs legend.
What?
Yep.
I said Cavs legend.
Yep. I know it's hard to believe for a lot of the young people around here, but back in the day, the Sacramento Kings were terrible back then too. And he was a really good player. He was a player that just got stuck in Sacramento for his best years. Made a bunch of all-star teams. I believe he made NBA all NBA third team a couple times. His biggest claim to fame is that Michael Jordan has repeatedly said that he guarded him the hardest, and he was the hardest person to play against defensively.
The Mitch Richmond story where Mitch Richmond sat out and Michael Jordan walked over him was like 50. You're not playing tonight? 50.
Yeah, 50. Yeah,
50. Like that's one of the best stories of all time.
And MJ, anytime his name comes up, MJ gives him all the respect in the world. So, like I said, he got buried on a really bad Sacramento Kings team for a long time. Number 3 for me, I was a little bit shocked that nobody said him. I'm sure you guys probably all heard his name, but this is a guy that I actually liked playing, when I was growing up, just getting into basketball. He was very good.
Can I guess?
Sure.
KJ.
Yep.
I knew it. I almost put him on my list. I love Kevin Johnson. I knew as soon as you said that, I'm like, I kind of really whiffed on not putting him on my list. KJ again.
And believe it or not, Cottrell probably knows this. Started as a Cleveland Cavalier, couldn't get playing time there behind Mark Price, so they shipped him out to the desert and became a really good player. Was on that Phoenix Suns team that went to the finals. Never really got the respect, that I think he deserved. A lot of it had to do with who he's playing with. But he really turned into a superstar. He really did. And like Gene said, especially when you're younger, you always watch your favorite teams. KJ was kind of like one of those first guys. Like if Phoenix was playing, I would watch him. I always liked him. Never was a guy that I never rooted against him or anything like that. Always wanted him to do well. I don't know what it was. I just thought the dude was likable and he was very good.
Kevin the Troll, KJ might be my favorite player of all time. He was awesome. To watch this drive was amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, we like you guys, like you said, you were talking to the Sports Empire guys. I had fun with this today. I was talking to Brandon, and then Billy C, and then even my boss Rich, who played at LaSalle, and we were going back and forth with all these names, and it was a lot of fun. But I gotta give credit to Brandon. KJ is one of his favorite players of all time, and he threw his name into the ring, and it was one of those things, like you said, as soon as I heard it, I was definitely on the list. So I gotta give Brandon his credit for that one. Number 2, I think, is an interesting name. Again, this came up in discussion and we kind of looked it up. I'm going with Dominique Wilkins. Again, another guy that I think everybody knows the name. I think a lot of people associate him with, just being the dunk guy and everything else and playing with Spud Webb. You look at his career numbers, the guy averaged almost 26 points a game. Was on a good Atlanta Hawks team that just played a really bad time in the Eastern Conference with the Pistons and the Celtics and then, Chicago and MJ and all that. But he was a damn good player. Again, he's another guy that's in the top 75, but, you ask, anybody to say the top, 10 small forwards and stuff like that, you probably won't hear his name a lot. And he's in that discussion. Number one for me, same guy as Gene, Moses Malone. Playing on a team with Dr. Dre, and the Chronic. And the Chronic. Dr. J and another guy that I almost put on this list, Maurice Cheeks. But again, you asked, guys, name the top 5.
Coach's list is solid too, bro. Alex English, a great one. Mitch Richmond, you said him. Peja Stojakovic, KJ, and then Rashad Lewis. The only one I disagree with on is Rashad Lewis. I don't think Rashad Lewis was.
I think he was
overpaid. I think he was overpaid, if I'm being honest with you. But I like Rashad Lewis. I like Seattle Supersonics Rashad Lewis, though. Not Orlando Magic Rashad Lewis.
Page is a good one. Brandon had that as well.
Page is a good one.
Page is a good one. But Moses Malone, again, you hear guys talk about the top, centers of all time. Not that he's 1, 2, or 3, but he's you look at his life, his career accomplishments and championships and awards and everything else. He deserves to be in that next group of conversation, and he never is. He's a 3-time MVP. He's a Finals MVP. And you'll never hear anybody, around Philly you might, because we got to see firsthand how good he was, but nationally, you'll never hear his name. I think that's crazy. It's criminal. Dude was an absolute force in the NBA when he's in his prime.
It's facts.
So Moses Malone, number 1 for me.
Guys, that was fun.
I will tell you this, man. Like, when we put that in the chat and then we started talking about it, I had an absolute blast trying to put this list together. And it was crazy. It was kind of like a trip down memory lane for me too. Cause you start Googling, and researching, and you just have all these names pop up that you forgot about. And people I watched growing up, playing a million games. It was a lot of fun. I had a blast doing it.
Well, I'll tell you what I had a lot of fun doing. Biggest rivalries in all sports. I hope everyone's listening to this because this is going to get real fun to start. So I created a list for you guys of biggest rivalries in all sports. Now, before we get into the 10 greatest rivalries in all sports, I have a bonus 5. Bonus for you guys all at home. Bonus 5. Number 5. Biggest rivalry of all time. Ben Simmons versus the basketball. Number 5 for me. It's a huge rivalry. He doesn't want to play. The basketball wants him to play. Ben Simmons versus shooting is just a rivalry you cannot get past. Number 4, Allen Iverson versus practice. Talk about practice, man. Not a game. Not a game. Not the game I go out there. Practice, man. Number 3, the Buffalo Bills versus the Super Bowl. If you know the old acronym, Bills stands for Boy, I Love Losing Super Bowls. 4 straight. Oof. Number 2, and it was very close to being number 1, but number 1 is unbeatable. Number 2, LeBron James versus the hairline. It's a rivalry. He's been working on it, and the hairline keeps winning.
Kevin Durant's got to be honorable mention in there somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. I couldn't say that on air, though.
Kevin Durant and the hairbrush.
But the number 1. The number 1.
Jesus.
Your career versus the Kardashians. Unbeatable. The Kardashians are undefeated in the series. They swept everyone up. They're all gone. Your career versus the Kardashians. They're my top 5 funny rivalries of all time.
I like those.
They're undefeated like Father Time. They haven't lost yet.
I will say, when you first said Allen Iverson, I just swore you were going to say and a championship, and I was going to say, wow, that is hurtful.
No. Why would you say that?
Because you're a Philly guy, AI was your guy. That was just my immediate.
There's plenty of guys you could say that with.
No, I know. That's why I was gonna be hurtful. That's why I was gonna be hurtful to me, because I like AI is one of my favorite players.
LeBron versus his hairline is still my favorite, but the Kardashians versus your career is still undefeated.
I mean, the only problem is, I mean, it looks like Devin Booker might make his way out of that. So he might be the one that takes down Ali.
Breaks down the curse.
Yeah.
Down goes Frazier.
Down goes Frazier.
All right, so best rivalries in all sports, Cottrell, because you're my homie, I want you to give me the order.
Okay. I'm excited to go, so I want to go first. Gene, I feel like we'll probably be far off, so I guess you can go second, and I guess we can end with Bill. And I'm hoping we're wrapping around here so we don't go 10 straight.
Yeah, let's go wrap around. So we'll go Cottrell, me, Bill. I feel like I did really well on this list. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like I did really well on this list.
Yeah, I know there's probably like 2, maybe 3 on my list that aren't going to be on your guys' list, but that's fine.
My honorable mention is the Iron Bowl, which I did not have on my list. Alabama versus Auburn. It was very close. I had it on there until I thought of a better rivalry, but that is my honorable mention.
My honorable mention is the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, I tried not having too much college football. I felt like that was like the biggest thing to have. So I tried to do my best to not have too much college football.
Look, you guys know me. You know college football is going to be king on my list.
I know.
But speaking of, we're going to start out with none other than college football, Army versus Navy. The only game in town, Army Navy.
I think it's too low, brother.
Yeah, you're probably right. But I also take into account that I'm a realist here. And as a guy that enjoys watching football, I may not be watching great football. Now, I'm going to watch it because the academies are playing each other. But I also could realize that they're not going to be showing me any great football, and that's okay.
9-3.
Exactly. 285 rushing yards and 14 passing yards. So
respect the wing T.
But Army Navy comes in at 10 for me. Obviously love that rivalry. It's always the only show in town that week. So you really can't beat it for college football. That's the only thing you got to watch. And if you're a college football fan, you're going to be glued to the TV. So I'll go Army Navy coming in at number 10.
I do love it that they give it its own week. I do love that.
Listen, I'll put it to you this way. I worked really hard on this list, and I did what I thought the best rivalries in all sports were. But I'm not going to lie to you, number 10 really pisses me off. I had to put it on the list, and I had to put it on the list. My number 10 is Bruins Canadians. Bruins Canadians is one of the best rivalries in all hockey. The hated Habs versus the Bruins for years upon years upon years. That's probably the biggest rivalry in hockey. So Bruins Canadians is my number 10.
I surprisingly have no hockey on my list.
Bruins Canadians should be on your list. If I had to force it on my list,
I did it based off of my top 10 personally.
Okay, sure. I did it based off what I think the best 10 rivalries are.
I did it. I tried to keep historical, what it has been in the past, maybe even if it's not great right now. But then still factored in like with my
I worked really hard on my list.
I did. I spent way more time on this than I did the top 5.
All right, so give me your number 10. And are we wrapping around or are we just going backwards?
Yeah,
we'll wrap around.
Shally goes 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
So these first 2, they're not even going to be teams. They're going to be individuals, which I think I couldn't
I
leave
have
off.
It too.
So I'm going to start with number 10, and I'm going to say this right now before I get any flack, in case I get flack, but I have it number 10 only because with the nature of the sport that these 2 guys competed in, they fought 3 times, and it was, unfortunately they couldn't fight more, but it's the greatest boxing rivalry and trilogy in the history of the sport. That's Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. I'm sorry, Gene. I'm sorry.
I have it too. I think
it's on my list.
I thought I was going to be what?
It's on my list as well.
Oh, I thought I was going to be the only one. Solid work, gentlemen. Solid work.
So it's number 10 for me. Thrill in Manila. We all know, 2-1 Ali. 3 of the best heavyweight fights you will ever watch in your lifetime. Back when they went 15 rounds, just slugfest. These 2 guys just beat the hell out of each other. it is the preeminent, like I said, it's the preeminent rivalry in the history of the sport of boxing. Number 9 for me, I got Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal. As of right now, I mean, Djokovic is number 2 in majors, but Roger and Rafa for a better part of a decade were almost guaranteed to be in the finals, if not against each other. They are 2 of the top 3 or 4 tennis players to ever play the sport on the men's side. They have almost 40 majors between the 2 of them, which is insane. I think it's, I think the cool part is, they started out as, fierce rivals at the beginning, and they ended up being really good friends at the end, especially when, Roger finally retired last year. But for being, the huge undercover tennis fan that I am, I love watching these 2 guys play. No matter what the surface was, it was always a great match. So they came in at number 9 for me.
I'd have preferred Agassi Sampras.
King of Clay.
That's my time. I understand,
bro. No, dude, it's my time. Agassi's my guy, my number 1 guy forever. I think the overall just accolades of both Federer and Nadal,
just biggest rivalries, Karam, of all time. My number 9 is Ali Frazier. I'm not even going to talk about it no more because Bill already stole my thunder. Ali Frazier, the Thriller in Manila. Oh man, I give up. You're going to be so proud of my number 8, though, Bill.
All right,
you're going to be very proud.
That excites me.
So my number 9 is a rivalry that I grew up watching, and that is Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock.
I love that you put that on there.
I absolutely love that rivalry. Every time Rock got
such a good answer.
He was phenomenal at selling it. They worked so well together, and they put forth some of the best scenes you will ever see in the WWE. So my number 9 is Rock versus Steve Austin.
Trilogy, baby. WrestleMania 15, 17, and 19, which ended up being Stone Cold's last match when he dropped the belt to The Rock. But 3 main events in 6 years. Can't argue a damn bit about that.
I love that answer. Give me your number 8 now, Control.
My number 8, one that I know is not going to be on either one of your guys' list, but that's okay. My number 8 is the USA versus Jamaica when it comes to track and field. Every year, you're going to see your fastest guys. Every 4 years, the Olympics, you're going to see your fastest guys, and you're going to see Jamaica's fastest guys, and they're going to guys and girls, both sides. Relays are going to be incredible, and every year that world record or Olympic record is going to be at risk. Obviously, the last few years they've had Usain Bolt on the men's side, and then they've had Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price on the women's side. But USA consistently competes, and when it comes to the relays on the women's side, women have been getting it done. Men have been falling just short. So now that Usain Bolt's gone, I think this rivalry will be right back in the swing of things. So they come in at my number 8.
My number 8, and I need credit for this. I think I did this good. Real Madrid versus FC Barcelona. Listen, Messi versus Ronaldo I even tuned in to watch some of those. I felt like Messi had such a stacked team, though. Like, I don't even know which one. I'm not going to lie to you. Barcelona was Messi and, right?
Yes.
Okay. Messi, and they had Neymar, and they had like 3 superstars on Barcelona, and Ronaldo was going at him by himself, essentially.
That is not
accurate. Not accurate. Listen,
I have Suarez, Neymar, and Messi on the same team.
Yeah, but Ronaldo had Benzema and Luka Modric, and at a point, Modric was like probably 3rd or 4th best players in the world,
and 3 of them were on one side.
Listen, I'm super proud you put soccer on your list. Let's just stay like on the casual surface.
Grass ping pong.
There you go. Get your points and we'll move on.
All right, your number 8.
Number 8. Speaking of Cottrell's Olympics, I'm going the Latvians versus the Germans in bobsled. No, I'm kidding. I got the Green Bay Packers versus Chicago Bears. One of the most old school rivalries there is in the NFL. It's going to lose a little bit of its luster, I think, now with Aaron being gone. But I think Chicago's got the guy that can kind of be the face of that rivalry for a while behind center. So I think it's going to be Chicago's turn to finally get the better of that rivalry for the majority of the time going forward for a little bit. But you go back to, all the greats of both teams, all the crazy, you see at the beginning of every NFL film ever. You got Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, all the great Green Bay Packers, all the games and the snow and the frozen fields and all that stuff. It is just a very storied rivalry. And like I said, I think for the NFL, I think it's the oldest continuous rivalry that's has equal amount of hatred between the fans going back forever. Number 7 for me, one that I grew up with. It was kind of like going on during the introduction, kind of when I really started to watch basketball and understand it. LA Lakers versus Boston Celtics.
Whoa.
It's something that I think, even if you're not a Lakers or Celtics fan, if it start to come back to fruition, there's a little bit of an outside chance we got it this year, but two of the most storied, franchises in all of the NBA, in the history of the NBA. Just hasn't been so much of a recent thing, but you look at the history and the players that played it in its heyday: Bird, Magic, Worthy, Kareem, McHale, Robert Parrish, all those guys. It was incredible. So number 7 for me, just because of kind of recent bias.
Number 7 is one of the first of 2 baseball rivalries. This one to me is the West Coast rivalry of them all. It's Giants-Dodgers. You want to talk about, I'm going to say this as nice as humanly possible. People talk about Phillies fans and Phillies fans having their issues. There's not been more murders than at Giants-Dodgers games than any other sport, because those fan bases absolutely hate each other. Giants-Dodgers, huge rivalry on the West Coast, and it's the first of my 2 baseball rivalries.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a Giants game where a guy left. He's like paralyzed now because of a fight that he got into from the Dodgers and Giants game.
They tipped over a porta potty and beat the crap out of somebody in a porta potty. There's a lot of them.
They are insane. But now we're getting back on track, back where you guys know I love. Getting back to college football. My number 7, I got Oklahoma versus Texas in the Red River rivalry. This is a rivalry where, again, this may not be football wise. You may not be getting the best game on TV. Like, I know there's better ones. There's going to be better ones that are out there. These 2 teams absolutely hate each other. And I love the back and forth that they do. The horns down is probably my favorite taunt in college football, honestly. Just because, Texas fans every year they're back and they're not really back. So Oklahoma doing that and in that rivalry, and they're really right across the river from each other. So comes at number 7 for me. My number 6, it's a matchup that you guys have already talked about. That's Ali versus Frazier. Obviously, greatest boxing trilogy there is. With Muhammad Ali, a lot of that stuff there is that's happened in that trilogy. A lot of that stuff there is from his fight and the buildup with Joe Frazier. So absolutely incredible. Thriller in Manila, of course. So Ali Frazier lands at the number 6 spot for me.
My number 6 one is something that you already mentioned, and it's blasphemous that it was too low on your list. Army-Navy, man. Army-Navy at number 6 is, I feel like that's almost pushing it as low. You want to talk about 2 colleges that went against each other. I mean, the cadets, these matchups that we watch, like Charles Wright, man, they've gotten a little bit bland with running the football, but I can watch Army-Navy and it doesn't matter how bad it is because I can see the hatred across. Listen, you want to watch guys hit each other. You want to watch guys leave it all on the field, like 150% every single player that gets on there. Army-Navy is my number 6.
Number 6 for me, I'm going with the Iron Bowl. Alabama versus Auburn. War Eagle versus Roll Tide. Last couple of years, we've had We've had one of the craziest endings in the history of a college football game in this rivalry.
Yep.
Alabama's obviously gotten the better of it recently. Back in late 90s, early 2000s, that was almost a given to be a great game every single year. But a ton of tradition there, a ton of history, a ton of crazy plays, a ton of the who's who of NFL have gone through that game. And to Gene's last point about the last game, you talk about hatred and talk about two fan bases that do not like each other. That is a game that you were born into. You were either an Auburn fan or an Alabama fan. There is no casuals there. You either grow up being told you hate Alabama or you grow up being told you hate Auburn. They do not like each other. And it's rivalry week. It's always the fun 3:30 game to watch. So comes in for number 6 for me. Number 5, I'm going to go to the pitch and mention a game that Gene already talked about. El Clasico, FC Barcelona versus Real Madrid. The game's so popular that, even for, before all these new soccer packages came out and everything else, ESPN literally paid La Liga to have the rights to air this game in the U.S. every year. We've already mentioned some of the star power that have played in this game, presently and even back in the day. Again, two fan bases that literally believe in two different things. That country shuts down when those two teams play. It is as much hatred between those two fan bases as there is in between any other two teams in any other sport. And it's, again, if you're a soccer fan, it's way up there on the can't miss list every single year. So comes in at number 5 for me.
Okay. My number 5 is, look, you can't have the greatest sporting event, greatest sport of all time, not have a rivalry on here. And the biggest rivalry in the NFL is Bears-Packers. It's the longest tradition rivalry in all football. You want to talk about how much a loser the Chicago Bears fan base is? They don't care if they win football games. They just want to beat the Packers. They have zero care about anything else but beating the Packers. And in the 80s, the Green Bay Packers, the only thing they wanted to do was beat the Chicago Bears. When these two teams have bad times, it doesn't matter if they beat the rival. Bears-Packers is the biggest rival in professional football, and professional football is the biggest sport in the world. So that's my number 5.
My number 5 is one that's probably going to be obviously it's the lowest that all of us are going to have it, but my number 5 is Yankees Red Sox. I know this is coming in extremely low, but again, this is just my personal list here. But Red Sox Yankees, you get these matchups obviously so many times throughout the year, but it's really fun when you get to see these guys play each other in the postseason. And I know we were just talking when we were on our NBA segment talking about the Yankees and the Red Sox and Boston drinking the Kool-Aid, like, hey, we've done it before, let's do it again and all that stuff. But Yankees Red Sox, I feel like it always leads to there's something that happens, whether benches get cleared or things like that, people get thrown at. It's a fun rivalry for sure, and it's the best rivalry in baseball. My number 4 is a game that you guys have both already mentioned. That's El Clasico coming in, Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Absolutely love watching these two teams play. Right now, it's a little bit different because you don't have Ronaldo and Messi playing for these clubs, but it's still must watch every single year. So coming in at number 4 for me.
My number 4 is best basketball rivalry in the world. 17 championships versus 17 championships. Celtics versus Lakers. Which team gets to 18 first? You want to talk about the 80s. The Celtics 76ers rivalry was ridiculous. They hated each other. The neck grab, a Bird, Dr. J, Moses Malone. And Boston hated LA so much that after losing to the rival 76ers, the crowd started a chant of beat LA, beat LA. Because it didn't matter that the 76ers knocked their Celtics out as long as the 76ers beat LA. in that 83 finals. The Sixers did. Lakers Celtics is just something special to watch. You know, we talk about Magic and Bird, right? That's a great rivalry in itself. But who was the better player, Magic or Bird? Well, Bird had the better peak. Magic had the longer career. But the argument's really close. For my money, I think Bird's a better player than Magic was. But the arguments that go back and forth between LA and Boston are an absolute insanity. These two franchises have tons of championships, 17 apiece, and they're almost always relevant. So for number 4, give me Lakers versus Celtics.
Number 4, I got one you guys both talked about already. Army versus Navy. Cadets versus midshipmen. It's either played in Philly or Baltimore every year. Like Gene said, you will never watch a more hard-fought, hard-hitting but respectful game. They hate each other when they're on the field. As soon as that final whistle blows, it's all about respect and their common goal of serving this country and protecting this country. It is unique. There is nothing else like it. It is not the best football. A lot of people would argue it really doesn't have anything to do about the football. You watch, both teams, sing the other one's fight songs together at the end of the game. The pageantry, the tradition. I think people also forget, back in the day that, back in the 40s, even the 30s, 40s, and 50s, Army and Navy were both usually two of the best teams in the country. The problem is the football really hasn't evolved since back then. But there's plenty of Heisman winners that went to Army, and there's plenty of Heismans that winners that went to Navy. But like I said, it is unique. It's storied. There is only one of it. And it comes in number 4 for me. Number 3 and number 2, I went back and forth with a little bit here, but I'm going to go with number 3. I'm going to go North Carolina versus Duke. Battle of Tobacco Road. Tar Heels versus Blue Devils. I'm going to say the rivalry lost a little bit of luster this year, but I mean, I think it'll pick back up. Having Roy Williams and Coach K there for the last decade plus. It's two teams that don't like each other. They're separated by 8 miles or something like that. They're both usually perennial powers, top 10 programs, and they don't like each other at all. They both games.
Do they like each other?
No.
Okay.
They are both. Both games are always shown on prime time, no matter who whatever the records are for either team. It's the top rivalry in college basketball. So came in number 3 for me.
I know to you two, this is going to be your number 1 because I just heard the way you went about it. You guys are both going to have the same number 1. It's my number 3. It's still very high up on my list. It's Michigan, Ohio State. That's my number 3 on my list. It's the greatest college rivalry in college football. I can't put it on the same level as the 2 other ones I have above it, but it is a great college football rivalry. I'm not good. You guys are both going to get into it because you guys both have it number 1, but my number 3 is Michigan versus Ohio State.
So my number 3 is going to be Celtics versus Lakers. Matchup that you guys have both already talked about. All the obvious reasons, they're on that hunt to see who gets 18 first. And you've really seen this rivalry take off across all decades, really. The 80s you had Magic and Bird. And even in the 90s, like the Lakers weren't perennial powerhouse, things like that. But back in the 2000s, once Kobe came around and you had the back-to-back years where they met each other in the finals, it was crazy. So, and I think now you're going to start to see that be a thing again, especially with the Lakers having more recent. I think they will start to have more success now once LeBron's off that team, and there's going to be people that always want to go to LA.
The Lakers are done.
They're
done.
Nah.
They won't make a championship until 2030. Book it. I'll bet you whatever you want.
Nah, they'll have the money after LeBron's off the books. They'll have the money to go sign whoever they want to, and LA's always going to be appealing to people. In Boston, we've seen what they've done in the Eastern Conference for the last 5 years already. And I know it may look a little bit different after Jaylen Brown makes his decision, but I think these are two teams that have all the potential in the world to meet each other again in the final sometime soon. My number 2 is Duke versus North Carolina. Absolutely phenomenal rivalry. You know, you get so much talent normally in this game. This past year was a little bit down just because those top guys didn't go to Duke or North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina had guys like Caleb Love and Armando Bacot as well, but they haven't had those recruiting classes where they get the top 2 or top 3 guys for Duke and North Carolina. So this year was a little bit different. I'm sure it'll pick back up, but always a phenomenal rivalry. And Shally mentioned it already. You know, when you have Coach K and Roy Williams, 2 of the guys who are considered, some of the best college coaches, not just of their time, but of all time, you're going to get the best out of that matchup. So they come in at number 2 for me.
My number 2 is Yankees versus Red Sox. That rivalry is incredible. And if you grew up the age I grew up and loved baseball the way I did, from 99 to 2005 are some of the greatest playoff series as you'll ever see. From, David Cohn, Andy Pettit, to Kurt Schilling, Pedro Martinez, to Roger Clemens, to throwing at people and who's your daddy. Like, listen, call it what you want to call it. Red Sox versus Yankees. Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Big Papi, Manny Ramirez. Like, those series were unbelievable. I can watch Red Sox. I hate both teams, and I can watch Red Sox Yankees anytime it's on, even now. It's the best rivalry in all baseball. It rivals the greatest rivalry ever. I have it number 2. But, man, you want to talk about 2 baseball franchises that hate each other? Yankees, Red Sox is where it's at.
Number 2, I have Red Sox Yankees as well. Gene touched on the more current version, and the version a lot of people are familiar with now. It goes all the way back to when Boston traded Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees and started the curse of the Bambino. It is the names that have played in it, the championships between both teams, the history. I can't stand either fan base at this point anymore. But, like Gene said, you watch those 2 teams, especially if it's in the playoffs. If you're just a fan of baseball, it's electric to watch. It is something that, has gone back, longer than probably pretty much almost anything else on this list. And the who's who. I mean, you from Jeter to A-Rod, back to Ted Williams, back to Murderers Row with Ruth and Gehrig and all those guys. It's
Forget
nuts.
them. Let's think about like some of the non. What about Tim Wakefield and Jason Varitek? Johnny Damon, the Judas of them all.
Jason
Giambi for a while. You had Tino Martinez. There's so many.
Bambino.
Aaron Boone. I mean, there's so much, man.
Johnny Damon's got to be the biggest Judas ever.
It's up there.
Crazy, right?
But yeah, I mean, it's nuts. I mean, we could talk about that rivalry forever because there's so many great chapters of it, twists and turns. It's crazy. Number 1 for me, we all know what it's going to be. There's no gimmick names. There's nothing. It's the best rivalry in college football. You just say the game, everybody knows what you're talking about. Thanksgiving weekend, Saturday, 12 o'clock kickoff. You're going to either be in the Horseshoe or you're going to be in the Big House. 2 of the most storied college football programs ever. And, regardless of what you see between me and Cottrell, most of our fans hate each other. But it's gotten a little bit better the last couple of years because we finally got our asses back in gear. But it is the best college football rivalry in the country. It's not close.
I agree.
And it's not a biased thing either. It's just it's the most recognized rivalry that there is in college football.
College football, I agree with that. But college basketball is still a thing too. And Duke, North Carolina is the biggest rivalry in all sports to me. That's my personal opinion. Everybody has them. But when you have Roy Williams and Coach K, Dean Smith, all the players that went back and forth, from the Christian Laettners to Michael Jordan to Antoine Jameson, Jerry Stackhouse, J.J. Redick, Shane Battier. Watching these two teams go back and forth at each other for years on top of years, being one seeds out of the same conference to try to meet each other in the Elite Eight, in the Final Four or the finals. Duke versus North Carolina is and I always love it when it's in Cameron Indoor. The Cameron crazies go crazy, and it makes it even more fun when North Carolina wins the Cameron. Like it's just one of those things to watch the Cameron crazies go crazy and watch them lose to UNC. I almost root for the road team in every one of these games because I love watching how hostile the crowd gets. I have no dog in the fight. I don't like either team like that. I'm not against either team. If I had to root for one team out of the two of them, I'd probably pick North Carolina, but I'm not either one. I'm a Villanova guy. But with that being said, my number one is the Cameron Crazies versus the Tar Heels of North Carolina.
Respect. So my number one, Bill already mentioned it. Gene just mentioned it at his 3, but that's the game. Like Bill said, I mean, you say the game, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. And contrary to what Bill said, me and Bill may be very cordial, 364 days out of the year. On that Saturday, we are not cordial at all in the group message. And the last 2 years have definitely not helped that at all. We lose and I just get upset. I think this past year, I know me and Audia, we went out to watch it at one of the local bars here or whatever. I remember not doing anything the rest of the day. Like it ruins your entire day when you lose that game. No matter how good or bad your season's going, you lose that game, it ruins the entire day. But just from a outside perspective of the game, this is always college football. I think has an advantage when it comes to rivalries because they can schedule it to be the same time at the same everything pretty much every single year. Like Army Navy, they have the privilege of being the only game the week after all the games finish. With Ohio State and Michigan, they have the luxury the Saturday after Thanksgiving every single year at noon, you're getting Ohio State versus Michigan. And I just think because of that gives some of these rivalries a leg up when it comes to college football. But Ohio State, Michigan comes in at number 1 for me.
Great list, by the way. I love some of your answers, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. I took it really serious, and I wanted to find the 10 greatest rivalries. But I'm not gonna lie to you. When you threw out the Rock versus Stone Cold, I went.
That was great.
That's such an awesome name. Well,
yeah. Have fun doing that for sure.
All right, so we're gonna get a little bit of MLB, and now we're gonna be too long. I just want to do a little bit of first quarter update and the MLB season. A lot of teams that we projected to win the World Series, to be in the World Series, to win their divisions.
They ain't doing so hot.
Yeah, no. Let's just go through it real quick. So my World Series prediction before the season started was the San Diego Padres over the Toronto Blue Jays. Let's see how I'm doing. San Diego Padres right now are 22-26. And the Blue Jays are in last place in the AL East at 26-23. I'm doing very well.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees were in last place 2 weeks ago. I mean, I think the crazy part is everybody in that division has a winning record. So it tells you how good everybody in that division is playing. So I would panic way less with Toronto than I would with San Diego.
I will say too. I mean, I think the thing that is going to be interesting to look at really moving forward is, Gene, I'm almost positive you had the Orioles making the playoffs. Am I correct there?
I had the Orioles and the Texas Rangers making the playoffs.
So with the Orioles, I think it'll be real interesting to see how long they keep up this success. Now, I'm not saying they won't be good the rest of the season, but them being right behind Tampa Bay right now, I don't think people were expecting that at this point in the season. So it'll be curious to see how they keep that up.
I had the Toronto Blue Jays, the Baltimore Orioles, the Tampa Bay Rays. I had no Yankees, remember? And I had the Cleveland Guardians, and I had the Astros and Rangers. They were my 6 teams in the AL. 5 of those 6 are currently in playoff spots, or 4 out of 6. Sorry, Toronto is not, and Cleveland is not. So I'm not doing terrible there. But
I remember I wanted to pick the Baltimore Orioles, and I said it on the show. I gave you credit for pulling the trigger on it. I just couldn't do it, and I'm obviously, kicking myself for it now. I think Toronto's going to come back to the pack a little bit. I mean, they're playing, 700 ball right now. I just don't think that's realistic of a pace in that division. The Yankees are starting to play a little better. They're getting a little bit more healthy. I am really curious to see how Baltimore plays over the next 30 or 40 games. The only good thing is with all these predictions, we're only about 50 games in, so we got 110 games left. So there is still a marathon of a baseball season to go.
That's why I wanted to do an update. We're about a little bit less than 1/3 of the season, about 30% done, and I kind of want to.
It's going to get warm. Teams are going to start hitting. So I mean,
and the inevitable is going to happen. You're going to have teams start to lose players to injury, and they're going to be sitting out for 45, 60 days or so. So, I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see how these teams kind of navigate through that.
I would like somebody from either Central Division to start playing quality baseball. I mean,
I was doing fine with the Pirates. They were 21-10. Now they're 25-24. I had the Pirates. I saw that future bet on the Pirates to win the division. 25 to win 900. They're still offering me a cash out, but nowhere near what it was.
I think the only thing with them is it's. Listen, I mean, they were overachieving. I think we would all agree on that. But between that and the Cardinals are starting to show a little bit of signs of life. So
I was just about to say that, the Cardinals, and we had even mentioned it. I think when they were 10-20, we had brought up a little bit of baseball. And it looked like they were. I know it was early, but it looked like they were dead in the water. But now they're starting to win some games. So
Flaherty's starting to look like 2019 Flaherty again, and Nolan and Paulie are starting to hit the baseball a little bit. So I still think they win the division. Listen, I think if Pittsburgh and Baltimore hang in it, and get to the end and have a shot the last 2 weeks, I think that's great for baseball. Camden Yards will be packed. PNC Park will be packed. Hopefully. It would be great for both those teams. Probably not. They don't deserve that stadium. They really don't. But Pittsburgh should get what's his face back relatively soon.
O'Neal
Cruz.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully maybe that's a.
I was going to say I don't think his.
Well, they put him on 60, so.
Well, they said he was going to be. It was going to be a 4-month injury though.
Yeah, July, August.
All right.
So they're in trouble. I know.
They got to tread water till then. But we'll see.
The second thing I wanted to bring up with Major League Baseball is the Tampa Bay Rays are absolutely incredible. 35-15. They came down to earth a little bit, and they're still playing 700 baseball.
Yep.
So they got a plus 107 run differential. That's 50 more than any team in Major League Baseball. The only thing more shattering than that is the Oakland A's with a negative 178 run differential, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life. To be 50 games into a season and have a minus 178 run differential, I don't even know how it's possible.
They almost have a minor league team in the major leagues, and that's a goddamn shame.
It won't be for much longer.
Nah, it's that whole situation sucks, and I can only say that from you look where the A's started. They were originally in Philadelphia, moved out to Oakland. They've been there forever. The ownership, and the city couldn't, arguing over goddamn pennies about how they were going to pay for a new stadium. There was 4 different renderings of it done. They were all awesome. And now that's just over, done with, and they're going to move the team to Vegas. When they go to Vegas, they're going to have a ton of money because Vegas will support them, just like you support the Raiders. And, the Golden Knights have, went from an expansion team to having one of the best, the best freaking fan bases in all the NHL. They'll start spending money when they get out there, I guess. But it's that whole situation sucks. They're going to absolutely just cave in this year and next year. save their money, move into that new ballpark in 2 years, and and then I guess we'll see what happens. But
is this Oakland A's team the worst baseball team you've ever seen in your life?
I mean, it's in the damn running. I can tell you that much.
The crazy part is that we're not that far removed from last season. The Cincinnati Reds going into that season, I thought we were talking about them potentially breaking the all-time losses record. So it's crazy.
What is the all-time loss? Isn't it 128?
Bill,
most losses in one season. I got it. MLB history. Wow. It's not happening. Almost impossible. The Cleveland Spiders own the single worst record of all, a minimum 120 games. They finished 20 and 134.
2 centuries ago.
Yes.
1899.
They have the worst record. The worst in a – oh, wow. In a 162-game season, projected to be the worst team of all time, the most would be the Oakland A's.
Yeah, I was saying you're looking at the same thing I'm looking at. Yeah, they're 10-40.
Spiders.
Oh. And that was they should have brought that back, honestly. That was in the running for final names.
They should have.
Should have brought the Spiders back.
Because Guardians suck.
I don't know if you want to bring that 20 and 134 record back.
I mean, absolutely not. But we got a clip art logo now as our logo. So
okay,
Spiders you could have worked with.
Oh, I got it. The worst record of all time in a 162 game season. Got it right here. Pulling it up right now. Looks like the New York Mets were 40 and 120.
Jesus.
The worst record in 100, and I think their A's will beat that. They're on pace exactly for that.
The problem is that with the way baseball is now, like if they win like 8 of their next 10, or not even like right now, but like at some point,
there's not a chance in the world that team wins 8 out of 10 anytime. You could put them in our softball league; they might not win 8 out of 10.
I'm with you for sure. But like I said, we were just having this conversation with that Reds team, and they found a way to win. I think they ended at like 50.
Is awful.
The crazy thing with this pace is not that you have to win 8, but like to Cottrell's point, if they have 2 like 3-game winning streaks in the next 2 months, it totally ruins it. Like they just won't get there. Like so it's you literally have to lose like 5 out of 6 games every week to get there.
But it won't be long, if you're an athletics fan, in about 2-3 years, you'll be right back in contention because once they move to Vegas, your team will spend money again. So
the only good thing is they're keeping the name, which I'm happy about. But I'm assuming they're going to change the colors probably too, which will suck because it's not going to
suck. By the way, Tiny said there's nothing in your green tumbler.
Yes, there is. Oakland's whites are clean, man. They are clean. They're different than everybody else in the major leagues. I love their home whites.
I think they need a black and gold MLB team.
Why? So they can
Vegas?
Match the Golden Knights. Why?
I don't know. I think it would be
that
cool.
Would be some black uniforms would be nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, so you got to play them in freaking August in Vegas, and you melt.
Oh, I'm sure they'll have like a retractable something. The
players
will be fine.
The stadium's cool looking, but yeah, it's gonna be a retractable roof.
All right. Anything else you want to bring up MLB wise? Just updating everybody. The Philadelphia Phillies got a walk-off win today. They've been terrible this year. Trey Turner has been awful, but the tying home run in the 9th inning today, will that be the turnaround for Trey Turner's season?
He looks a little lost. That's 2 games in a row. He's had a big hit in crunch time, though. The day before, he had a big RBI single to right, hit the home run today. They just got Bryce back. He's still getting healthy, getting his timing down. Got Ranger Suarez back. You just got to hope, they get Alvarado back in a couple weeks and then you really start, getting set in your rotation and everything else and see what they can do. The good thing is, as bad as they've been, they're only 2 games out of a playoff spot. The Braves really haven't ran away with the division. So, it's the Mets have struggled way more than everybody thought they were going to. So, I think they're going to be okay. They got to use the momentum today and go back to winning some series like they were doing the last couple of weeks.
I mean, I think ultimately the Mets will be fine. Verlander hasn't pitched as much as I'm sure that they've wanted him to this early in the season. But the one thing that I will say that I was surprised about is that with the WBC being this year, I was surprised how many players started off the year still rusty. Like, I get it, it was April and now May, but I was expecting a lot more players to come in just with that rhythm because they were playing such high level baseball going into the season.
Makes sense. Everything you said makes sense. I will say this. I, as a Phillies fan, cannot stand regular season Kyle Schwarber. Now, bring him to the postseason and we're fine, but I just can't watch a guy bat 170, man. I don't care how many home runs you hit. Like 170, he beat Borja and Mendoza line an entire year. You can't bat 200 in Major League Baseball.
No.
It's so annoying to watch. But whatever. All or nothing swing. That's what you're going to get.
That's what you're getting right now out of Polar Bear.
It's fair.
Yeah, I mean, Polar Bear's still hitting like 245, though.
Yeah, that's also true.
I mean, it's so tough to watch him during the regular season. Bright spot for the Phillies, though, are Stott and Castellanos. They've actually hit decent start the season. And, well, I guess we'll see what happens. Hopefully they continue trending upward after today, and we get a Phillies postseason run.
A lot of baseball left.
A lot of baseball.
And I'm sure if you stay where you're at now, I'm sure you guys will definitely make a move because I know there's going to be teams that are selling, especially with how the standings look now. So
the Milwaukee Brewers are in first place, and they're going to sell. Everyone knows.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if the Phillies are going to get a first baseman. You can't rely on Derek Hall coming back and being anything, worthwhile. All these other guys that they're throwing in there on a random basis right now, it's just not going to work. CJ Cron's name has been thrown out there a lot. A couple other guys. I think they'll make a move to get a first baseman sooner than later. Fill out the lineup a little bit, add another bat, and then we'll go from there and see what happens. This team notoriously doesn't start well, so I mean I'm not overly concerned. We make this silly joke every year about hitting weather and everything else, but it's true with this team. The hot once it really starts warming up, they start playing better. So
100%. Last year they were 22 and 28 to 50 games.
Yeah, so
this year
it's not the end of the world.
Also had the coaching change that really sparked it though.
You're right.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the Nationals being an awful team all year. You can't rely on that like we did last year. They're better this year than they were last year.
Yeah, they're way better than everybody thought they were going to be.
All right, so this is your moment, Bill. This is your moment. Guy cost me friggin' money in the Masters, goes out and wins the PGA Tour Championship. I never, ever, ever will root for this man again. I went one tournament, and he's 4 strokes up going into the last day and blows it, and cost me a lot of money. So screw him.
I mean, I said it on the show. I picked a bunch of first timers. Now, Victor Hovland, one of my picks, did come in second.
You did.
But I said as soon as I started picking all the first timers, I said I was staying away from Rory and Brooks and all them. I said one of them was going to win, and lo and behold, here we are. Now, listen, man. I mean, I think the interesting thing is, you have the whole live dynamic. I give Jim Nantz all the credit in the world for being the only guy to have the balls to actually say the word live on the broadcast. Everybody else danced around it, but I'm happy for Brooks. I mean, obviously, listen, I like him. He's one of my favorite golfers, even though I loathe his wife. I can't stand her, dude. She wasn't even there. She sucks. But
she was at the Heat game, though.
Yeah, she was at the Heat game, and she had a Sports Illustrated swimsuit, party the night before. I'm like, you couldn't get on the plane and be there for your guy. And she got drug all over Instagram. So everybody's like, oh, like, where's Brooks's wife? Like, nobody there to greet him after the 18th greeting. And then she puts up some dumbass video of her, like, dusting off the display case. She's like, I was just getting this ready for the new trophy. Like, shut up. I can't stand her.
I didn't even know who his wife was. I just looked it up. I know who this person is.
Watch, like, the 3rd episode of Full Swing on Netflix. And after she talks for 4 minutes, you'll know why I don't like her. That she literally thought the cameras were there for her, not for him. But anyway, I digress. Listen, I'm a big fan of Brooks. I have been, even before the whole Bryson thing. A lot of people don't know his backstory and like where he started. He wasn't a guy that kind of came on the scene and was like, labeled like the next big thing, like Rory or even people like that. But he was playing on mini tours in like Kazakhstan and stuff like that, and he just kept grinding, and it's part of his mental, it's part of his mental preparation now. And I think it's one of the reasons why he is the way he is in the course. But as excited as I was for Brooks, and I think it's crazy to say that he is the best major player now on the planet, outside of Tiger Woods in his prime. Like he's past Rory McIlroy, and I don't think anybody ever thought we were going to say that. Rory's been stuck on 4 forever. Brooks now has 5, and it's kind of nuts. But if you watched any coverage of the golf at all, the coolest part of this weekend, even more so as Brooks, was the whole Michael Block story. And if you're not really like a golf fan, I've still struggled to come up with the best analogy of what he accomplished this weekend. He's a local teaching pro at a local course, made the cut, finished 15th, gets an automatic invite to next year. The odds of that happening are just staggering. It's the coolest story in all of sports for me this year that's happened so far. I know it's early, but it's, it is just a wild, wild story. If you ever watched the movie Tin Cup, it's kind of like that in real life, but better and more, more unbelievable, if you could say that. Guy answered every question right, handled it all well. He's gotten 2, wild card entries now to other tournaments. Guy made $300,000. He literally changed his life in one weekend. And he's just a little teaching pro from a country club in California. Love that dude. Picked up a lot of fans. Was awesome to watch. Just being a huge golf fan and actually like appreciating what he accomplished this weekend was awesome. So it was a good weekend for golf. It really was.
It was a terrible weekend for PGA.
It was. I mean, it was. The irony of. I think it would have been better for a LIV guy to win the Masters because it's the Masters is its own thing. It's not necessarily affiliated with the PGA, And he won the trophy and he's sitting up there and the front of the podium it just says PGA of America, and I'm like, he's a LIV guy. Like it was, Jay Monahan was probably in some closet somewhere smashing a bunch of stuff. Probably not real happy about it, but he's helping to ruin golf, so I really don't care. But I'm happy for Brooks. He's going to qualify for the Ryder Cup now, which is good. I give Scotty Scheffler a whole bunch of credit for the answers he gave after they asked him about that and what he thought about Brooks' qualifying. You listen to his answer. He pretty much said it. He goes, I don't care what tour they play on. I want to take the 12 best guys from America to go over there and win. He's like, we haven't won in Europe since like 1990. He's like, I don't really give a crap where they play. I want to take the 12 best guys and go win. I think the media more than anything is making more of it now than anything else. I don't think the players really care that much anymore. I think they're over it. They just want to play golf.
All right, let's get into You Got to Be Kidding Me.
So I have one this week, but with better judgment, I'm not going to use it. So I don't have one this week. I'll let you guys know what it is afterwards. But
I'm intrigued now.
No, you got to be kidding me for me this week.
I'm wondering what it is. Like, can you give me like a hint?
Nah. I don't even want to dabble in it. Don't even want to dabble in it now.
Okay.
But I was originally going to use it, but I was like, you know what? Can't even do it.
All right. Shall we? Love you, Tiny. Love you, Tiny.
Love you, Tiny. Debating. You know what? I'm just going to do it. Screw it. I'm going with LeBron. The whole, God. It's like, I spent the first half of this show giving him his credit and, for helping carry the team and still being professional. And then he had to go and ruin it. He had to do the whole woe is me, exit interview and talking about, he's thinking about retirement and blah, blah, blah. Like he just had to, he just couldn't help himself. He had to have that extra little spotlight. And lo and behold, turn on Sports Center the next morning. What's the first thing they're talking about? Not the Nuggets winning. Is LeBron really done? That man is not retiring from basketball. And if you believe that, I got real estate for you. I got some ketchup popsicles. I got lots of stuff to sell you. That man is not walking away from basketball. I understand he's tired. I understand he's probably sore as hell. He's old. And, I give him all the credit in the world for the dedication, that he puts into basketball and himself to be that old with all the miles on the clock and still play at, let's not joke or kid ourselves, at an elite level. He is still an elite basketball player by every sense of the word. But I don't need the sulking. Like, you could have gave Denver their flowers, said, I'm going to go home, take a couple days and, remove myself for basketball and just relax with the fam and everything else. And he just had to throw that little carrot out there. Everybody wasn't going to jump on it and run with it. So he still managed to find a way to make it about LeBron. So for this week, LeBron James, with your stupid retirement talk, nobody's retiring.
Come on, you got to be kidding me.
For what it's worth, I think there is a slight chance that he could take a year off and come back to play 1 year at Bronny. So I understand what he's saying. I don't think he'll be back in LA this year. I don't. I'll put that on record now. I don't think he opens the year with the Los Angeles Lakers next year.
And I think he under contract, or so you're saying he's getting traded.
I believe he can opt out. I believe he has a. I think
no, he can't. He can't opt out. He doesn't have the freedom. Options, he doesn't have the freedom until after this upcoming season.
Yeah, 24-25 is his player option.
But I mean, I think if he has surgery and just says, "Hey, I'm not playing basketball," and just retires, and then he's like, "No, I'm coming back." Like, I could see that happening too, Gene.
Playing 1 year at Bronny. I think he's going to wait until he can play 1 year at Bronny. I think he might sit out this next year, though. I really believe it.
And then use surgery as the excuse to not come back.
Yep, I can see that. All right, so mine this week is not really that good. It's not as great as everybody else's. I wanted to use the NBA officials, but the Denver Nuggets made sure that I didn't have to use that, so that's okay. It's disgraceful, just so you know, and Lakers fans will tell you it's because we drive to the paint more. The free throw disparity in this playoffs for the Lakers versus any team they play, matter of fact, for the whole year, is just absurd. And if you watch the game, it's almost unbearable. You act like Nikola Jokic didn't just win 2 MVPs. And he was in foul trouble 2 out of 4 games because the Lakers need to win a game and still didn't work for them. I don't believe for 1 second that officials aren't swayed to give LA calls. LeBron gets the superstar treatment, which he's earned, but Austin Reeves did not earn that superstar treatment. And Nikola Jokic, being a 2-time MVP, should never be in foul trouble over ticky-tack calls, ever. But I won't use them. What I'm going to use is Adrian Peterson. He's 38 years old. He went in the media today and told them that he's not officially retired. Adrian Peterson, I need you to do me a favor and listen here and listen clear. You're an NFL running back that's in tremendous shape for 38 years old. Take your money and go home. You're not a pro football player anymore. You shouldn't make a roster, and you shouldn't take it away from a young kid that's trying to make a roster. You're 38 years old. You're not going to be this veteran presence on a winning team. The only thing that you can hope to do is to catch on and be a goal line back for a subpar mid-team, and all you're doing in that situation is taking a spot away from a young kid. Let me give you an example. A guy like Muhammad Ibrahim, who went undrafted and signed by the Detroit Lions, is in a backfield right now with 4 running backs. Would you could take Adrian Peterson and have him go to Detroit and take Muhammad Ibrahim's spot. Guy deserves it. Coming off ACL surgery. Or Achilles surgery, sorry. I say ACL all the time when I'm talking. It's Achilles. It's tough for me to sit back and watch this man still try to play NFL football when he's well past his prime, and at best he is a backup to third string running back. So for this week, Adrian Peterson.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
And he's not like close to any like crazy milestone, right? Like he's not like record book chasing, like he isn't like 2 touchdowns away from some crazy number or something.
I don't think so, but even still, I don't think Adrian Peterson now. Gene, you talked about him taking away a spot from a young kid. I don't even think that would be the case now. I don't think any team would waste a roster spot on Adrian Peterson, even though he is, one of those backs where you hear the name and it's like, hey, we have this guy on the roster. I don't think any team would make that sacrifice for, 53 is precious, so I don't think any team makes that sacrifice.
Good. So that's our show this week. Anybody have any final thoughts for episode 137?
No, man. I hope everybody has a nice, safe Memorial Day holiday weekend. Like we always do on the show, just remember what the holiday is really about. Take a couple minutes, thank people if you know anybody, and just reflect. Big on reflection these days, but don't let any firecrackers in your hands or anything like that. Doesn't work out well for you. So be safe. Eat lots of hot dogs and have fun.
I have a real serious one, so I'll wait to go last. Control, do you have anything?
Nope.
All right, so this is kind of like a good news, bad news type thing, just like it was posted. Bad news. We'll start with that first. League member in our softball league, Dave Demko, owner of Just Food. His girlfriend, Ann, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. She needs surgery to remove the cancer, followed by 6 weeks of recovery, 6 weeks of radiation and chemotherapy. Unfortunately, Ann and Dave, out-of-pocket medical expenses will be over $10,000. So as a league member in need, we've all come together as great softball league that we play in, and we've got that over $8,000 before the tournament, which is this Sunday. This Sunday, I got to give shout outs to all the people that helped put this together. Chris Hackney, Jamie Richards, Les, Katie Cherba. There's so many people that let's just go down the list. I want to give them all their time. Softball America is giving away 2 league credits. Jess McReynolds, Victoria Williams, Carol Ann, Casey Condren, Ree and Hagen's Heroes are donating a 70-inch TV. Honcho Athletics, Treatum Sports, Ryan Nicholson, Mike, Big Titty Mike. It's the way he likes to be called. The Raz Eyes, Pals, Bill Brancato, who's been all over the place getting stuff. Cutting Edge Sports Apparel, Kurt Hensman, Anthony Valls. And as Wire to Wire, we always try to get involved in something like this. And we donated a replica helmet courtesy of Nick Dolis. So I want to give him a shout out. And a replica jersey of their choice, a signed helmet, and opportunity to co-host Wire to Wire in the future. That'll all be donated this Sunday, courtesy of Wire to Wire. I love the whole SBA family got together to help out the Demkos. If you ever met Dave, he's one of the nicest human beings on the planet. Guy's so fun to be around. Plays on a team that never wins anything Tuesday night. Still gives off 50% and has a great time.
They have more fun than anybody.
Yep. Check out Just Food. If you want to donate, message me afterwards. I'll give you the GoFundMe. I don't have the link available. We could post it up there. But just want to shout out whole SBA family for everything they did for the Demko family. Shout out Dave, and best prayers and wishes to the entire family. So, listen, we want you to get better, and we're all praying for you over here at Wire to Wire. So thank you. And with that, episode 137, Wire to Wire, is signing